Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Tajofalltrades, and today we're going to learn how to make some delicious vegetable fried rice with some Asian inspired flavors. So here's what you're going to need for this recipe. You're going to need about half an onion, 2 cloves of garlic, an inch and a half of ginger, 7 to 8 baby carrots, 2 green chilies, a bell pepper, a whole cob of corn, some portobello mushrooms, some green onions, 3 eggs, and some sesame seed oil, soy sauce, and some MSG. So here I am roughly chopping up my onions. Meanwhile, I'm letting the rice boil. I'm only going to partially cook my rice and then drain it and then take it out on a tray and let it air dry for a little bit. This is important because you don't want wet rice in your fried rice, right? My dad would even let the rice dry for about 5 to 6 hours when he was making big batches of fried rice. So now I'm going to add my roughly chopped onions to a hot pan of oil. So I've been heating up this oil on medium high. Meanwhile, I'm going to mince my 2 cloves of garlic and add them in as well. So for this recipe, I'm leaving a lot of those vegetables kind of chunky for a really nice mouthfeel for one, and two, because it's fried rice, you're gonna want the vegetables to be a little crispy and not turn into mush. So that's why cutting the vegetables a little chunky and a little rough is a little important for sure. So the reason I'm adding the onions, ginger, garlic, and green chilies first to the oil is because I really want the oils to absorb those flavors and really be the base of this dish. So after I've added in my garlic, I'm gonna just let all of my ginger, I'm gonna let all of this stir fry for a little bit and, kind of just cook, but not turn brown. I don't want these vegetables overcooked at all. So now I'm adding some sliced carrots. These are baby carrots in like rainbow colors. You can use whatever kind of carrots you want. And cut them however you like. Just be sure not to slice them too thinly. So I'm gonna let this cook down for a little bit before I add my corn. So my trick with corn is when I'm like getting all the corn off the cob, I hold my knife at an angle and then slice down. The reason I'm struggling here a little bit is because my knife is getting a little straighter. I'm not holding it at a really good angle. So when I get to an angle, it was a lot smoother. So I'm using a whole cob of corn here, and you're gonna know your corn's cooked when it swells up and turns into like a really nice deep yellow. So while that's stir frying, I cut up a whole bell pepper, and as you can see, cut a few big chunks, and I've added it, as this is like one of the last few steps of the cooking process. There's a reason why I'm adding these vegetables in this order. I'm adding them in the order of like takes the most amount of time to cook to takes the least amount of time to cook. So now here I'm adding in some mushrooms. I'm using portobello mushrooms. I would honestly recommend adding in some oyster mushrooms as well for more of a nice umami flavor to this dish and really add to that Asian infused flavors as well. Here I've added in a little bit of butter because butter and mushrooms go along really well, and also because my pan was starting to get a little dry and I didn't want my vegetables to burn, but I wanted them to cook. Now I've added like about 2 to 3 sliced green onions here, as this is like the very last stage of the cooking process for these vegetables. After I've stir fried this a little bit, I'm gonna season the dish with about half a teaspoon of salt, and I'm gonna add a whole lot of pepper because that's just how I like it. You can use as much or as little pepper as you like, but I'd recommend adding in a good amount for the amount of vegetables that you end up having, because that's you're only using 3 seasonings for this dish, salt, pepper, and MSG. So Here I'm adding in about a quarter teaspoon of MSG actually, and it adds a really nice umami flavor. And again, if you're really not a huge fan of MSG, you can choose not to add it, but you're gonna miss out on that umami flavor. So now I'm taking out the vegetables to the side because I'm gonna make my fried rice in batches of 3 to 4, where I'm gonna add the rice first and then add the vegetable and egg mixture and then like cook it a little bit more with some more seasoning and the sesame oil and the soy sauce and then take it out right away. So here I'm about to add 3 eggs to my pan, which I have not cleaned because I want the eggs to absorb all the flavor that was in the pan. And I've not whisked my eggs here because I like my eggs to look a little like um, white and golden, like have chunks of white and golden egg in my rice. So you can pre-whisk, it's not a big deal. So now I've cleaned my pan. I'm going to add a little bit of oil and heat it up. And I'm going to add some rice to this now. And you're going to want your pan to be hot because you're going to want to hear that sizzle that this rice will have when it hits the pan. And you're going to want to like see your rice pop as well a little bit. So here you go. Here's the sizzle. So that's the kind of sizzle I'm talking about. So yeah, like you're gonna like ruin your fried rice if you add it to like cold oil. So just really add it to hot oil, see if some of the rice is popping on the side, and see if like you can really hear that crackle, Now I'm gonna add a little bit of my egg and vegetable mixture to this and give it a good stir and like make sure that it's all mixed, and also season it with a little bit of salt, pepper, and MSG. So the great thing about making this in batches is if you add too much or too little seasoning in a batch, you can always adjust with the other batch, and then in the end when you all mix it all in, it's all great. And at the very end, I add a teaspoon of sesame oil and 3/4 of teaspoon of soy sauce to the whole batch and mix it all up. So there you go, folks. Enjoy. See ya.